You're actually up for the year, so why does opening the app still feel like bracing for a punch? Here's the twist. The problem isn't your portfolio. It's how often you look at it. And here's what that flinch is quietly costing you. There's a long-running study of how everyday investors actually behave, and it finds the same thing year after year. The average investor earns noticeably less than the very funds they own. Not because they picked the wrong fund, because they couldn't stop reacting. They check, they feel something, and then they do something, and that something, more often than not, is mistimed. There's a name for that shortfall. It's called the behavior gap, and it's wider than almost anyone would guess. The strange part is that the gap isn't created by bad investments. It's created by good investments, watched too closely. Think about what the habit actually looks like. You're standing in line for coffee. You open the app out of pure reflex. You see a number that's down a little since this morning, and a small knot forms in your stomach. Nothing about your actual plan changed. Nothing about your retirement changed. But your day just got a little worse, for free. And here's the quiet kicker. The more often you do it, the more of those little knots you collect, and the more tempting it becomes to finally make them stop by doing something drastic. Quick thing before I show you the number that fixes this. If you want the calm, evidence-based version of investing, the exact opposite of the screaming you usually get, subscribe. If not, no hard feelings. Stay right here, because this next part is the whole point. So here's what's actually happening underneath the habit. Every time you peek at the balance, you pay a small tax. Not in fees, in feeling. And that feeling is what quietly wrecks good portfolios. I call it the peak penalty. The more often you look, the more often you happen to catch your money in a dip, and the worse you feel for no good reason at all. And notice, none of this is about whether you own good investments. You could own the most sensible portfolio in the world and still feel terrible about it, simply because you check it 40 times a week. John Bogle, the man who built index investing for ordinary people, had a famous one-word rule for exactly this. Don't peek. He meant it almost literally. Own the whole market, set it up well, and then stop staring at it. He wasn't being lazy or careless. He understood that watching is its own kind of risk. And there's one number that explains the entire trap. The same market can look like a painful loss or a near certain win, depending on one thing you completely control. I'll show you that number in a second. Hold on to it, because once you see it, the whole habit starts to look a little ridiculous. So here's the number. Morgan Housel points out the market has been positive about 53% of days, but 100% of every 20-year stretch. So when you check it daily, you've signed up to feel a loss almost half the time, in a game you only lose by watching too closely. Sit with that for a second, because it's the whole idea in one line. Look at a single day, and the market is basically a coin flip, red almost half the time. Stretch the gap to a year, and you're looking at a gain in roughly 3 years out of 4. Stretch it to 20 years, and there's never been a losing stretch in history. The market didn't change between your glances. Your odds of seeing a loss did. The losses don't disappear when you stop looking, you just stop volunteering to stare at them. Every extra glance is a tax you pay in dread. And dread is exactly what makes people sell the thing they should have left alone. So why does looking hurt so much more than it should? There's a piece of research that explains it, from 2 psychologists, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They found that a loss stings about twice as hard as the same-sized gain feels good. Losing $100 hurts roughly twice as much as finding $100 pleases you. That's called loss aversion, and it's wired deep in all of us. Now put those 2 facts together, because this is the engine of the whole thing. If a loss hurts twice as much as a gain feels good, and short windows are red almost half the time, Then checking constantly means you are repeatedly poking the exact part of your brain built to panic. You're not getting information. You're just collecting pain. And our brains hate sitting with that pain, so they go looking for relief. And the fastest relief on offer is to do something. Sell. Tinker. Move to cash until things calm down. That's the trap closing. The dread you manufactured by looking too often becomes the reason you make the one move that actually costs you. The behavior gap I mentioned at the start isn't bad luck. It's this: looking too much, feeling too much, acting at the worst possible moment. So what do the people who get this right actually do? They build doing nothing into the plan on purpose. Warren Buffett said his favorite holding period is forever. His partner Charlie Munger put it even more bluntly. He said the big money isn't in the buying or the selling, it's in the waiting. These are two of the most successful investors who ever lived, and their great skill is sitting still. For you and me, sitting still is simple and almost embarrassingly practical. Lengthen the gap between checks. Take the app off your home screen so opening it takes real effort instead of a reflex. And check on a schedule, on a calm calendar date, instead of on a feeling. That's it. You're not doing more. You're doing dramatically less on purpose. Now, there's a trap on the other side of this, and I'd be lying if I skipped it. Check less does not mean never look, and it definitely doesn't mean bury your head and pretend the account isn't there. That's just a different kind of fear. You still rebalance on a calendar. You still keep your contributions going. You still review the whole picture once or twice a year to make sure it still fits your life. The point isn't to abandon your money. The point is to replace a nervous habit with a calm schedule. A reflex with a plan. The difference is everything. Checking 40 times a week, on a feeling, is the peak penalty. Checking once a quarter, on a date you set in advance, is just good housekeeping. Same account, completely different relationship with it. So when I say look less, hear me clearly. I don't mean care less. I mean watch less and trust your plan more. The schedule is what protects you from both traps at once. The panic of staring too much, and the neglect of never looking at all. So here is the whole of it. The looking is the problem. Not your portfolio, not the market, not your timing, the looking. And checking less is a real edge you already own, sitting there for free, the moment you decide to use it. Let me say the thing I most want you to walk away with. Your portfolio doesn't need you watching it. It needs you to leave it alone long enough for time to do its job. Remember the number: red almost half the days, green every 20-year stretch. The losses are only as loud as your habit of looking. Here is the one small thing you can do in the next 24 hours, and it's smaller than you'd think. Move the brokerage or retirement app off your phone's home screen today. Tuck it in a folder, on the last page, somewhere your thumb won't wander. Then set one calendar reminder, once a quarter, to be the only time you open it on purpose. That's the whole change. Not a trade, not a new strategy. Just less looking on a schedule. If the calm, evidence-based version of money is what you came here for, subscribe for the Calm Investor Playbook that turns volatility into compounding. Calm investors. Build wealth with patience, not panic.